Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I want to break down the finale here for The Ones Who Live. Now, after this, I will be doing a season 2 video. So now, I guess before I even say any of this, I should warn you that this video will contain spoilers for the ending. Like everything that does happen in this episode here. So again, like I was just saying, I will be focusing on a season 2 and what they could focus on in that. Now, tonight, we're going to get a bunch of interviews. So in terms of what they say there, we'll have to wait and see. Because as of now, yes, it seems very much like how could they really do a season 2? A lot of people are saying it's open-ended. I've seen a lot of reaction to that saying it's open-ended. And I don't know, it didn't really seem like that to me. I guess there is still some CRM stuff that I will focus on. I know it seemed like they sort of resolved everything. It's not completely over. There is still some more stuff that they could tell there. The story would be more different than what we thought it would be, though, definitely. The story would be just entirely different here. Again, there's a lot of mysteries still that have not been solved yet. There's the triple P card. Gimple said that we might be seeing something about that very soon, and that was a reference to like The Ones Who Live and all of that. So we saw a reference to that here in the finale. It ended up not meaning anything, though. So what was that, right? So there is more. Beal mentioned in this episode as well that there's connections all around the world or whatever, all over the continents and stuff. And so I think that there's a chance that there could be more here. The CRM story is just going to be different than what we thought. And Major General Beal isn't the villain of all of this, right? I think that's what's sort of unfortunate about it. But there's places that they could go in for season 2 if they wanted to. So I'll focus on that in that video there. And we'll see what they say tonight. And then I'll probably do another video tonight. Like, there's going to be a lot of talk about what's happening here. Like, so much talk about all of this here because there's honestly a lot to talk about in terms of The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, and is this really just going to be 6 episodes, or is there a chance to do more? Because there's no way this is just the ending. The ending to me was so rushed here. But let's break down the episode, and then I'm going to give my thoughts sort of going throughout it here, but I do want to focus more on the facts of just what happened here, and in terms of just like the story and all that, and all the details that we learned here. I rewatched it a second time, and I didn't like it as much as when I first watched it. And even when I first watched it, I wasn't the biggest fan of the episode. And I will say, I thought I was alone. Honestly, I was so nervous posting my review, my general review that I posted beforehand. I was so like nervous posting it because I was like, I was seeing a lot of people saying that they really liked it. And I was just like, I always stick to my word with this. Like, I'm just going to post how I feel. So I'm just going to have to post it. And I honestly felt sick to my stomach. I was like, I'm going to get a lot of hate for posting that. But honestly, most of the reaction, well, I don't want to say most of it, but it's leaning more negative. So it is mixed. It is very, very mixed. People have a lot to say about this, but I think people are in overall agreement that the ending was amazing. Like the ending scene was awesome, but there should have been more of that scene. People should have had time to breathe in that scene, just to kind of live in it a little bit. And the scene was like 2 minutes long. It was like 2, maybe 3 minutes long, right? Like, let's talk about the episode here. So definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. This show is now over, but there is other shows, and then we'll see about a season 2. But Daryl Dixon, there's going to be variant walkers and all of that. Daryl has still not reunited with Rick, so there's a lot of that story left to tell. Carol's going to be in that show. There's a lot of really incredible characters on The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, and so just how does that, get into a lot of this here? I will say, after this, I am even more convinced now that they can't keep sticking with 6 episodes. It does not work. It didn't work for Dead City or Daryl Dixon. I mean, it worked more for those shows for sure than it did for The Ones Who Live. For The Ones Who Live, like, they just rushed it entirely. If they were going to end it like this, they should have gave us like 8 episodes. Like, give us 1 episode just focused on Beal. I just want to learn more about the character. We've been talking about this guy for years. We've been so excited for him. I wanted to know more here. But yeah, so far from what I've seen, everyone kind of loves the ending scene, but it's more just like really just disappointment over everything. And yeah, I wasn't alone in that, so that's kind of good. But we do see Rick very early on returning to the CRM Cascadia base, and he tells the CRM that he was the only one that survived. Someone that was with him saved his life and pushed him over the helicopter. The helicopter crashed, obviously, but he did survive. And Rick tells Pearl Thorne this as well. And that was the part about this episode I also found very interesting, because he tells Pearl Thorne that, we should keep what Okafor had going. And so at this point here, Rick has just decided to lie to Pearl Thorne. And like in his head, he made Pearl Thorne the villain already. Where, I think in previous episodes, it wasn't really, fully explained that she was the villain. Pearl Thorne hasn't been in an episode since episode 3. Episode 3 was her big episode, and I really, really liked that character. And again, episode 3 started off with Pearl Thorne getting very, very upset about what, happened to Rick. And she was so worried about Rick. Like, they were friends. They were really great friends. And then somewhere, I don't know if Scott Gimple just kind of forgot about that. But in this episode here, it seemed like they were friends. It seemed like they kind of caught back up with that. And in terms of Pearl Thorne's side to things, yes. But for Rick did not care. Rick, at that point, the second he started talking to Pearl, was just like, you are a villain. I don't care about any of this here. I'm sticking with the plan that I have. And yeah, all the years of friendship that we had, I don't care. Like, I feel like they probably could have saved her here. But Rick, after this, does go and meet with Beal, and Beal tells Rick that the sword that kills is the sword that gives life. And this was a common theme in this episode. Swear on the sword. And Rick doesn't in the end. And a lot of what Okafor wanted, I question a lot of now, because Okafor wanted them to change the CRM from within. And I mean, I guess they technically did, but it wasn't from within. They just destroyed everything. So like, they didn't do everything that Okafor wanted. I guess he sort of handled it differently. There was a line that Pearl Thorne said, which was like, the reason why Okafor died and believed in what he believed in was because that's just kind of who he was. And that's the reason why he's dead now and we're not, right? I guess maybe she was right about that, but then again, Pearl Thorne also just kind of died afterwards, so I don't know. I feel like you can just kind of write and say whatever you want to say in certain moments and just have it make sense. I think that Okafor's overall vision should have mattered a lot more here in the story, because Okafor was a really incredible character. We do see Michonne, though, at the same time of all of this happening. We see her, she finds a dossier very fast. I thought there would be a little bit more of a, I guess, just issue that would come up or something where maybe she couldn't find it. She was led over here or whatever. But no, she walks in, finds a dossier so fast and just rips it up, and then that is it. No drama with that. Oh, I mean, I guess someone does walk in the door and there's a fight or whatever, but really it's nothing. Like, she finds it and she destroys it. It ends up being in this like cat ornament or whatever. When you actually read what was said in here, she talks about, obviously just sort of if something does happen to her or whatever. And this is just sort of all the information here, my arrangement with Rick Grimes. Then it kind of goes into something else, but she was a part of, I guess, another community. I secretly brokered a deal with, I'm guessing, Rick and whatever. Goes into something else. I traded the injured Rick Grimes and whatever. I didn't know well, but then it goes into it is essential to understand the nature and something of whatever. Rick Grimes is a natural born leader who has managed something of whatever, his strategic abilities and whatever. Goes into something else, and then whatever. Michonne, Rick's wife, is a high, and then goes into something else. I guess something about a loyalty to Rick and her relentless whatever, something adversary, and then Alexandria's safe zone, or the Alexandria's safe zone, and then it says something and resourceful. And so that's basically sort of it. It's an explanation of everything. There was not really anything in here. I was kind of looking to see, like, would there be something really cool in the scene where maybe, there's mentions of like certain characters or just whatever. I was basically just looking for Easter eggs, but there's nothing there. It's basically what Jada said. So it was just that. Beal's echelon briefing was amazing, though. And honestly, it was the only thing in this episode that was really fleshed out properly, I feel like. I think that's where a season 2 could have focused on it, right? Was if the echelon briefing was basically, because Beal literally says here, like, you can have your family here at the CRM. You can take everyone, family, friends, like everyone. I will, I'll literally grant you this. And Rick, for a second just thought that, oh, that'd actually be a really good idea. I think season 2 could have focused on why that wasn't a good idea, because the CRM, wants to do all these things. But again, what Beal said was that there was a 14-year, thing that was going to happen, basically, that the apocalypse would probably happen again, basically. Humanity has 14 years left, and that's why they're doing what they're doing, so that, they do have a 500-year plan. So, Rick obviously doesn't believe him, But now the question I have is, what if Beal was right? Like, that's gonna be a thing that we're gonna ask ourselves forever. What if Beal is right, and then in 14 years from now, everything is over? You know what I mean? But I like the fact that he was really speaking to us in the scene. It really felt like, whoa, like after this moment, everything will change. And honestly, it's kind of funny thinking about it now, because that line used is almost, it was almost insulting to us fans, because in the end, the CRM didn't really matter. So, I mean, yeah, I guess something changed. You kind of ruined that whole entire arc, that whole story there. Like, I guess that's kind of true, right? But yeah, then Rick was asked about the worst thing he ever did, and he actually mentioned killing Joe the Claimer. I thought that was amazing, because that's one of my favorite Rick Grimes moments of all time. So I really, really like that. Beal has given the echelon briefing 2,533 times, and the soldier has never been anyone like Rick. So immediately I was like, oh, that's a very special moment, because he sees something in Rick here. This is the stuff that we were talking about before the show aired, was like, how special is Rick in all of this? We wanted to know a lot more. It was so exciting. And then getting a scene like this, it was like, whoa. And then he even says, like, you could probably lead this place one day. In 10 years, you're probably going to be the leader here. That would have been amazing to see. I wanted to see all of that, but nope, they didn't get into that here. I guess the military is still around. Like I know the ending made it seem like everything's done, the military's gone. The military is still around now. The only thing now is that there's civilian oversight. Like, there's oversight, I guess, from like the politicians and stuff like that. That's the only thing. So, they're not going to implement certain rules anymore. But again, there is still more of a story that you can tell there. It's just that I don't know if it's worth telling. Like, I don't know. I don't know where you could really go in terms of the CRM stuff, but there are other places you can go besides that. But yeah, we'll talk about that in my my season 2 video. Beal explains, though, that the CRM fought against the old government. The Second Civil War happened here between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and then Beal just chose to save Philadelphia by giving up Pittsburgh, which to me was very, very interesting, because doing that, that was similar to a lot of things that Shane did. That was the one thing that they talked about in the episode Insider, was that was what Rick noticed immediately. It was like, okay, you're acting a lot like Shane, where Shane just allowed the weak people of the world to die, basically, right? Anyone who was weak, or anyone who couldn't handle this and whatever, he just kind of saw as, yeah, you know what, we can't have you around. And that was basically it. And Rick doesn't like that way of thinking. So the whole entire 14 years until everyone is done, and it's not just by like the increase in walkers, but like by diseases and everything like that, Rick didn't believe that. Rick just thought, I think that's a lie. I think we have a better chance if we're all together here and everyone's helping everyone out. We'll have to wait and see if Rick ends up being right. Yeah, because that 14 years was a big, like, what, was Beal lying there? I don't think Beal was lying there, but yeah, anyways. Beal does say that they have places set up all over the world, so again, there's some of that. Michonne also learns of Portland at the same time Rick does. So, at this point here, the pacing is really, really picking up, and you're getting close to the 30-minute mark of the episode. And as of now, I think the pacing here is fine, but it also is very, very fast. But like, again, I guess you could argue that it is overall fine. It's just the choices they made at the very end that made everything feel rushed. Beal is just very impressed that Rick even came back. Like, after everything, he came back, and this is what makes Beal, I think, unwise, is the fact that he just believes everything. And that was my concern about Beal. He was a very interesting character going into this season here, and I wanted to know a lot more about him, but he ended up not being the big bad villain at all. He was just, yes, he's the leader, but like, they focused on Jadis and made it Jadis' story. Like, I'm so disappointed with this. Major General Beal was someone that was like so feared in the Walking Dead world beyond. At the same time, we were getting all these mentions, or possible mentions, I guess, of not Beal, but the Commonwealth, but the CRM, during like The Walking Dead. There's just like, is there a reference here? Like, what is this place? Why can't Rick escape, right? We had so many questions about how this place actually operated, and I thought the first episode of The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, actually really delivered there. And honestly, I know I said episode 5 was my favorite, but now having watched all 6, I could say the first episode was my favorite. I think the first episode did it just so perfectly. It was the perfect episode. You really went through everything and set up the story so well. But yeah, Beal does offer that to Rick, like, you can bring everyone back to the CRM, and he does really think about it, but ultimately decides, no, I'm not doing this, and he decides to kill Beal. I do like in this scene that Beal kind of notices at first, because he's like, swear on the sword or whatever, Then he notices Rick's not doing it, and then he's just like, no. And then he just like, then the fight actually happens. And then I was like, okay, this scene is just not great because there's all of these mini cuts during the scene to The Walking Dead just weren't really relevant. I know what they were trying to do there, but for me personally, they weren't that relevant to what was happening. I wanted to see Rick versus Beal, and it probably should have lasted a lot longer than it did, but it was just so fast. It ended right there. Now I can look at this, and just say that Beal was a very underwhelming villain, and they wasted Terry O'Quinn, a really incredible actor. I really wanted him to be a big part of all of this here, and, just going in the future and all that, and that was it. Like, that was literally it here. So, yeah, a very underwhelming villain overall, but again, still an amazing performance by Terry O'Quinn. I'm happy that we got him here on the show. It's just that as a villain, there wasn't really a villain of this show. It was just sort of the CRM. We also didn't get any Murder Jacket Rick. That was one thing that we were promised beforehand. It was just kind of classic Rick Grimes that we got the entire time. Like, the only thing that kind of seemed close to Murder Jacket Rick was that scene where he was fighting Okafor in episode 1, but it wasn't really Murder Jacket Rick because it was just fighting and all of that. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of that. Like, we didn't really get to see a lot of that where Rick was just going crazy, killing a bunch of walkers or just whatever, right? It was all kind of, I think, typical, just standard Walking Dead stuff for the most part. So yeah, and again, this is all 30 minutes in. I know I've been talking for a bit, but like, also my review at this point is like getting close to 20 minutes. But at 30 minutes in, they decided to destroy the chlorine gas. And I think in my video here, I'm probably going to be talking about it more in terms of how each episode kind of played out and giving it more, I guess, just like of an explanation. And it's not going to seem so much like it was actually like the pacing was bad. But if you watch the episode, you know exactly what I mean. I'm just going through every little detail and just giving thoughts on everything. So, but 30 minutes in, they decide they're going to destroy the chlorine gas. And 2 people destroying the CRM, I think, is just ridiculous. I honestly thought that whole thing was just ridiculous. I can't even believe that was something that they actually wanted to do here. Like, they were just going to destroy the CRM entirely. Like, what? Really? Honestly, I'm so disappointed in the fact that that's, the direction they chose for this. Because, I don't know, I get it. And that's why I don't like the lines of, Rick and Michonne or whatever. Like, they can do anything, right? Like, I don't like those lines. And there's a lot of dialogue in here that's very cringy and very cheesy, and it's just sort of typical Gimple dialogue. And I don't know if he wrote this episode. I think he might have, but I don't know. But those lines, it's just like, you throw logic out the window in those scenes, and you're just trying to make it all philosophical and all that. And this was the stuff that I did not like in season 7 and 8. This is why I liked when Angela Kang took over, but there was obviously some issues when I look back during that. Now I'm like, well, you probably could have changed a little bit here and there, but I also think that's probably because they were trying to rush season 11 quite a bit, because season 9 is a phenomenal season. But anyway, Pearl Thorne, though, notices that Beal isn't by the gate, and so she goes to visit Beal, and then, yeah, notices something is off, and she's getting very, very concerned. And then right away, literally, there's this scene, and the scene before this, they were just talking about the fact that, they have to go get the chlorine gas and all that. But after this, there's an immediate cut to Rick and Michonne, and they're already in the white tent. And at the point of this happening here, there is a summit going on with people giving speeches with frontliners there. I thought that there would be more of a focus on the summit. And there's a whole summit. You have all the leaders and everything. And like, for me, I was like, well, aren't you going to have Beal make a speech? Isn't there going to be more, just anything there? But no, the summit happening was so irrelevant to the episode. Like, yes, it was happening there. Rick and Michonne just sort of, they snuck into that tent to where the chlorine gas was. And that was it. Like, that was pretty much it. And Rick does give Michonne Beal's sword. So yeah, I guess now we know why Michonne has a Beal's sword. Yeah, then we see Beal as a walker, which again, I mean, I'm so disappointed that they actually killed Beal, but I'm so happy that we got to see Beal as a walker, because I always love seeing stuff like that. Seeing Beal as a walker was just incredible. So yeah, I like that moment there. But then Pearl realizes that Michonne is probably here, and then that just kind of sets her up as the villain so fast. And then all of a sudden, yeah, the Rick and Pearl friendship is gone. It's gone entirely in this episode. And then you start to hear lines of like, we have to stop them because we can stop them. I'm just not a fan of this dialogue and all of these intense situations, because normal people do not talk like that. That is not how people talk. And that's sort of my issue with a lot of Gimple's dialogue, is it's stuff like that. Fear the Walking Dead has dialogue like this as well. And that's what I like about Daryl Dixon and The Walking Dead Dead City. This stuff isn't in it. They just talk like normal people. And that's what the last couple of seasons of The Walking Dead also got right, was just very, very normal dialogue. And yeah, again, this show, obviously, it didn't have it like a lot, but during certain moments, yeah, obviously we would get dialogue like this. Pearl stops them though in the tents, and then immediately there's like this big explosion basically. And the CRM frontliners are all wiped out. Everyone at that summit were just completely gone, except for Rick and Michonne. There are grenades in there. Again, it wasn't just like the chlorine gas and all of whatever just happened there. It was actually grenades that went off. And if those grenades and all of that killed the people at the summit that were so far away from you, and you were like really close up to the explosion, how did you survive? That tarp, like the tarp that you threw over, that somehow, I guess, you survived from that? Was that explosion proof? I don't know. I just don't understand this. I think that this was actually a really, like, I just think they overlooked it. Honestly, I'm not a fan of this at all. And Pearl Thorne, she didn't have anything. Pearl Thorne somehow survived all of this. Like what? She jumped out of the way and it was fine. Like that blast was massive and literally wiped out the entirety of the Cascadia base. So I do not understand how Pearl survived in this scene, or Rick and Michonne. I have a lot of questions here. But yeah, the whole ending here with the chlorine gas everywhere and the fast pacing and all of that, the vibe I got immediately was that this kind of reminded me of Fear the Walking Dead, which I was like, this is not good. But I did ignore that right away because I was like, well, you know, this has to be the setting, so I'm just going to ignore it. But then we see Pearl versus Rick, and I was just like, okay, wait, what? Like, I understand Pearl Thorne because she's getting really upset about it, but Rick almost had no emotion to Pearl Thorne. Like, in this whole episode, you don't really even feel like Rick is feeling bad about what he has to do to Pearl Thorne. You know what I mean? He's just doing what he has to do, but ignoring any sort of friendship they had throughout the entire, almost last 10 years or however long it's been. It's been so long, and she's just like, she was nothing. That frustrates me a lot because I really liked Pearl Thorne as a character. But yeah, I think there should have been way more build up to this. I think it should have been a scene where Rick didn't want to fight Pearl Thorne, but he was forced to. He was actually forced to fight Pearl Thorne. And, you know, maybe when Pearl Thorne does die, it's more heartbreaking, right? It wasn't. Rick just did not care. He just, like, Michonne killed her, and then it was just kind of like, all right, yeah, we have to go. And again, Michonne versus Pearl Thorne, I did like the fight. Like, this stuff was cool to see, but the episode was going at a crazy pace that you knew it was about to end right away. There's lots of talk about, like, I didn't give up, or no, I didn't give me up like you did. And this was, again, this is how Gimple writes dialogue. You know, it's a lot of really cheesy, cringy lines like that. Like, in a dead world, love is dead, and then love doesn't die. And, you know, Pearl's death in this scene, just all of that, I think was just, I'm not a fan of it at all. I think Pearl Thorne probably should have lived. And if she would have died, I think there should have been more of I guess, you know, Rick feeling bad here, but he didn't. He just left. Unless maybe she survived. Like, is there a chance that she did survive at the very end? I don't really remember anything happening to her. I guess there was walkers that sort of ran around. So yeah, I'm assuming probably that she did die there, but yeah. Anyways, so quick thing that I wanted to mention here. I noticed while editing that actually I don't really understand why all of the frontliners became walkers right away, because the point of the chlorine gas, the reason why they use that is because it slows down the process of turning to a walker, right? That's sort of the whole point of it, is that it will slow the process down of becoming a walker. This way, you know, if you're actually attacking Omaha, or say if they actually got to attack Portland, then none of them turn to walkers right away, and it just makes it a little bit easier to sort of, you know, deal with and all of that. And yeah, that was the whole point of World Beyond and all the test subject stuff and all the labs that they were running and everything. So I don't really understand why they ignored that in this scene. I mean, obviously they just wanted to have walkers here, but I think that's, you know, it's such a big scene. That was something they probably shouldn't have ignored. You could have wrote this differently, I think. You know, just like this part here specifically, you could have wrote this differently. I mean, that's what the chlorine gas does. Like, you don't become a walker right away. It slows it down a lot. Like, they were going to be using this on Portland. Like, all of this was here to use on Portland. So, like, anyways, continue on with what I was saying. Rick and Michonne, after this, run on top of a crate, and then we get this voiceover like, oh, this is what happened to the CRM, and it's not actual scenes. It's just quick info drops. Like, it's just a bunch of stuff, like, you know, because now they got to cut to, like, the ending. So again, like, it was so fast. We just got the explosions, but like 5 minutes before this, they were like in the CRM. They just killed Beal like 5 minutes ago. And then already 5 minutes after all of this, the destruction of the CRM's already happened, like at the Cascadia base. And now they're standing on that crate there, and we're hearing just this whole thing of how the CRM story is sort of being played out there. And we learned that the CRM frontliners and Force Command are gone. Revelations on what they did, all of that stuff came out. So everyone found out about all of that. The CRC got oversight of the CRM. So finally that happened. You know, reform is happening within the CRM. So people can now leave and whatnot. And again, the CRM is still a part of this. The CRM are still a thing. It's just that it's being used for good now. But that's because of the oversight, but things like that could still change. You know, there's Major General Beal's son. There's a lot of things like that, but are they ever going to get into that? We'll have to wait and see. Again, there's a lot of things like this that we're questioning that don't make a lot of sense. It all depends. Tonight, they're going to be doing a bunch of interviews, and when they're asked, like, are you going to be doing a season 2? It depends on their answer, right? That really depends on their answer. If it's still going to be, well, you know what? Well, again, anything's possible. We'll have to wait and see. That's where I'm going to be like, okay, so now this is years of us waiting again, talking about, well, you know, they could do a season 2 on this, maybe. Like, I'm really not ready for that. So we'll have to wait and see where that goes. But yeah, as soon as we get all that information about what's going on, I mean, it's very fast. It all happens within like 30 seconds, 45 seconds. And all of a sudden, it cuts from Rick and Michonne having just killed Pearl Thorne and exploding the CRM base, which happened over 2-3 minutes. It's all of a sudden cutting to Rick, very nervous, you know, meeting Judith and RJ, like his hands shaking. I like that detail. That does make a lot of sense. But all of this was rushed. Even all of this was rushed. Rick was suffering before. Even in episode 1, we had so much there in that episode of him just suffering. You know, he missed Judith. Like, obviously, he didn't know RJ existed then. He missed Michonne. He just wanted to be back with his family so much. And I wanted to see that, not just a shot of his hands shaking there, maybe a 5-minute scene after all of it where they're just talking about stuff and his hand is shaking. And then, you know, Michonne is just like, it's all right or whatever. And then he just talks about just something, just anything kind of thing. And just, there has to be more build up there. There has to be way more build up, and they rushed through all of this so fast. Because again, the episode was 45 minutes. It didn't need to be 45 minutes. This episode could have been an hour long or 70 minutes long. Like, if this is actually the end of Rick and Michonne, I can't believe it was just a standard episode length. Everyone's always made the point that this was supposed to be 6 hours long. Most episodes have been 45 to 47 minutes long or something like that, with a couple being like 50 minutes or whatever. Like, basically, if you add all of the episodes together, it adds up to being like, what, 4 hours? Just a little over 4 hours. So like, yeah, that's not really a movie trilogy at all. It definitely is not a movie trilogy. So, but yeah, we see Judith. Obviously, she hears Michonne. She's sitting on like that step, and obviously that's a step probably at the Commonwealth somewhere. And then they run to each other in the field. And I honestly this is where I broke down, because honestly, this scene is really amazing. Like, I think that it wasn't earned. There was a lot that you could have done to make this moment better. You don't just have to have this moment here because that's what you want to do. You do have to build it up a lot. And I don't think they really did. Like, they were building to it, I would say, in this episode before the episode. But it was just, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, it's happening. And then I like the fact that Rick kind of stayed back at first because he's like very nervous, right? Like, I haven't seen Judith and RJ in so long, but like, I'll tell a personal story here, and I don't really want to get too personal here, but I've kind of experienced a moment like this in my life where it wasn't with me. I was actually young. I was about 10, 11, 12 years old. I guess I was probably around Judith's age, and I did not see my mom for quite a while. It was a very long time. And my mom's reaction to seeing me for the first time in how long that was utter shock, because she remembered me being younger, and then she saw me, and it was just like, I still remember the look on her face. Like, her hands were shaking and all that, and she like had them up on her face. Like, she was so like, I can't believe like you're grown up, like you're you know what I mean? It was such a shock. And Rick in this scene, he doesn't really convey that. He seems a little nervous, but it's just, I would have wanted him to just like look at Judith a lot more and just be like, I can't believe how much you've grown. Like, the last time I was with you, you were like 3 or 4 years old. You were just a little girl, and now look at you. Like, you're a teenager now. Like, this is crazy, you know? Like, just moments like that where they just kind of like break down. And yes, Rick did get very emotional, but there was like disconnect in the scene. You could see it when Rick went to go and hug Judith. I was like, this feels off. This does not feel like Andrew Lincoln is, or Rick Grimes is even comfortable here. Like, it just felt very off. Rick was so nervous, and it's because there's no connection there, and you can feel the disconnect. You actually really felt it in this scene, and this is where season 2 could focus on. A season 2 could focus on this part here and repairing a lot of this here, right? Like, yes, a really happy, amazing moment, but there's still so much here, and I would love to see Rick and Judith have a really amazing relationship going forward and just focusing on that and trying to fix a lot of that, because Judith has connections to like Lori and Shane and all of that, so there's just so much there. So much probably came up, and when Rick, got there, like, you could argue that, Judith is starting to look more like Lori and all of that. So I feel like for Rick, it was just like, I can't believe how much you're starting to look like Lori, or maybe he even recognized Shane. Like, what's in his mind when he sees Judith? You know what I mean? Because it's been so long and I wanted more there. And again, this scene was only 2 minutes, and then he sees RJ, and I like the scenes with RJ. It was incredible, but like, there needed to be way more. There was so much more that you probably could have went into there. And then that was just the final shot. It just pans out and that's it. And that's literally it. Also, I forgot to mention, Rick is wearing his boots in the scene here. Like, when he actually steps out, he is wearing his boots, so that is very cool. But there's just a lot, like there's the Python, and there's a lot of things here. Like, a season 2 can do a lot more. I think it would be focused on a different story than we were expecting, but there's a good chance that you could do something here. Like, there's a way that you could do it. So again, the ending was amazing. They kind of went against how they tell stories usually, like just The Walking Dead, because they like a slow build up, and this wasn't that. I think that with The Ones Who Live, I'll do a whole review of this show, at some point this week. Probably Monday, I'm assuming. This was, I would say, it was awesome to see. Obviously, I was really happy to see all of them back in all 6 episodes. And I think it was a really incredible journey, but like, they basically got rid of the CRM immediately. And the goal, or not the goal, but the message of this season was like, the second Rick and Michonne got together, they are unstoppable and they were going to take down the CRM. That was basically it. And that's what I didn't want. That's what I really did not want, because I don't believe that 2 people can take down the entirety of the CRM. That's kind of insane to me. Like, that honestly is really insane to me. I think there should have been a lot more stuff that did happen here. I still wish Alexandria got blown up. A lot of things, a lot of stuff could have happened here, but that's where the episode ends. And in terms of a season 2, we'll have to wait and see. It seems like it's like not likely right now, but you can see where things would go. There's a lot of things with the actors where they didn't talk about certain things, right? Like, if you think about what Andrew Lincoln said, he was asked, do you view The Ones Who Live as like a chapter or a book kind of thing, right? And he said that he sees it as both. Like, this could sort of be a chapter to something, or it can sort of be like on its own kind of thing. And I don't remember how he worded it, but basically he mentioned it like with a ... So hinting that there would be more. So I'm just trying to look at this episode and think which part of it meant that there could be more. And so if they announced a season 2 tomorrow, and that was just like, they announced it, then I think we're all going to be wondering, like, okay, where do you do the season 2? Again, some of the Judith stuff, I think you could do some stuff there. Some of the things with, like, in terms of Rick and Judith, just like, having more scenes together, because that was the first time Andrew Lincoln and Kaylee Fleming ever had scenes together, right? So just to see that, just to see more of the family dynamic, would they be living at the Commonwealth now? What would the story be like there? You would have a lot of characters show up. Morgan would show up as well. There's a lot of little things that I'm just very, very curious on. And also Daryl, like, would that be a part of the story? Rick is just like, well, what do I do about Daryl now? Because Daryl's out there trying to find me. There's a lot of questions I have. And The Walking Dead seems to be far from over, because Gimple just retweeted that thing. Not retweeted, but he posted that thing saying that he believes The Walking Dead can live on forever, or whatever, and he said, he believes in the Walking Dead family. There was a lot of talk about that, and also a lot of stuff with like a season 2 and stuff. So I'm so curious on all of this, because there's been so much non-answers on everything, and a lot of proof outside this episode that, a season 2 could happen. But then we watched the episode and it seems unlikely. There's a way, but it seems unlikely as of now, because the CRM couldn't be the main threat unless he went down a route with Major General Beal's son, right? Because he's still alive. I believe his name was Mason. I could be wrong, but I believe, like, he's still alive. So there's some stuff there. Not everyone is going to agree with what the CRC is doing with the CRM. So there's going to be some issues there, definitely. But will Rick be involved in all of this? We'll have to wait and see, because again, they gave us a really good ending here, and a lot of that is going to depend on if they want to do a season 2, and it depends on that. So if they announce a season 2, then amazing. But yeah, we'll have to wait until tomorrow night. So yeah, definitely. I really did enjoy, I guess this is going to be coming out later on. So not tomorrow night. This is going to be coming out tonight. So like in terms of the season 2 talk and all of that. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But overall, this is my review of the episode. I was disappointed with it. I liked the ending, really incredible, but that ending was always going to be incredible, and I think could have been done way better. But in terms of the visuals of what we saw, very cool. Obviously, that was amazing. That's all I can really say. But definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.